So before I get started on this devlog, I just want to go over how this all started and what I did before this month began. First of all, I joined a game jam, where the theme of the game jam was nostalgia. Now I started by thinking, well, what are people nostalgic for? Then I stopped myself. I realized, finally, someone's asking me, what am I nostalgic for? Finally, I don't have to do any of that 80s nostalgia. I mean, I hate to agree with Velma, but, in Season 2 she kind of gets a point in some things, and the 80s nostalgia stuff is one of the things, I guess. I don't know, I haven't seen it. I've just seen clips. Anyways, I decided to go with Mario Party 8 because it's pretty much the only game I'm nostalgic for. Every other childhood game that I have fond memories I'd build nostalgia off of are games I never really stopped playing, so I don't feel nostalgia for them. But Mario Party 8, it's one of those games that you have to get 4 people to want to play with you, or at least one other person. And nobody ever wants to play Mario Party, so I also decided I'm going to be using the models from my horror game Submechanophobia. Hopefully I can get a devlog out for that next month, but who knows, I mean it's 4 months into development, so it might take quite a bit of time before I'm able to recap every single thing that I've done so far. But as far as this game goes, I built the DK's Treetop Temple map. I was going to build the others, but I decided to wait until I finished this first map, and I never really did. I'm still working on it right now. I started using underwater textures as well by simply taking this stone texture that I'm using for a mine level within my game, and tinting it blue. I also imported this asset, which is a statue of a mine guy that I made for, again, that mine level, and put him in the place of DK in the map because I don't want to use any licensed characters. I also created a text system that allows a sprite character to exist within 3D space, but then also talk using text that scrolls by just simply using a for loop to go through every single entry into the text. It reads from a file which you can pass in manually through the inspector that then splits the message based off the colon in the middle of the thing. It reads the left one and finds a sprite that matches that exact name using this sprite system that I created, and it takes the right message and uses that as the actual text. It changes the sprite's sprite components to match that of the sprite we're using the name of, and it also changes the image sprite component to go to the exact same thing in the text box. There's also some behind the scenes stuff that goes on for the first turn that is used for like deciding turn order and everything. It's a bit too complicated to recap, mostly because I've forgotten every single thing that happens with it. The main thing with this game is that it uses the Wii remote and its motion controls. Now, to do this I had to download a plugin that was created in, I think, 2007, either that or 2017. But as I was working on it, I realized that all of the documentation has been deleted off the internet. So I had to manually go through into the thing, and I also used an old Unity demo thing that it created to figure out what needed to be done. I have a whole tutorial on how to do all this stuff if you want to do it yourself, but it took me like 2 or 3 days to just figure out how to do all this stuff by myself. So thankfully I did get that working, and I was able to use the motion controls, which always has a constant upwards component and sideways component, whatever. The motion is always held as wherever the point's supposed to be, but I was able to subtract the previous point based off of a enumerator's delay. It's a recursive enumerator function. I'm using that because the Bluetooth and the Wii remote is slower than the update function, so it can lead to more delayed controls than it's supposed to. So by doing this, I'm able to find the change in distance a lot easier than if I was just doing it in the update function, as well as you can call this if there is a Wii remote and call another function if there isn't a Wii remote, and that way you don't have to manually test if you're using a Wii remote in every single thing. Now, I end up manually testing every single thing anyways, but that's because I'm doing something different with a different function that's a different enumerator, all that cool stuff. I then created a board system that manually holds the placement of every single space you can go on. It also holds a component to tell you where the next space is by using a number, and its own space that is a number, holds an alt space boolean, and if there is an alt space boolean, then it does this cool automated system that figures out whether it should be holding a right arrow, up arrow, left arrow, or down arrow. It never worked, but it was pretty cool. That also tells the character how they're supposed to get there. Usually there's a walk, which just goes from point A to point B, jump, which tells them to go to a midpoint in their X and Z positions, but their Y position goes to whatever the average is, plus something. Then it goes to the next point. Ladder, which goes to a midpoint in their X and Z position, then goes to the next one's Y position, and then finally goes to the space it's supposed to go to. And then there's Beanstalk and Elevator, both of which work, but I forgot to actually put them in the game somehow. Anyways, this is what they look like based on the final version of the game. Created a coin system that adds coins to your character and takes them away based on whether you land on a blue space or a red space. You can also land on this green space or these other two green spaces to lose 10 coins. I don't think I got footage of it though, but it's in the original game it uses piranha plants. In this game it uses octopus tentacles. At least that's what those are supposed to be. Landing on this space is supposed to give you a spear guy. It's supposed to appear, take one piece of candy from you, and then give you the money that you'd use to buy that candy back. In this version of the game, it crashes the game. Can't remember why, I did fix it though. Finally landing on this space summons the anglerfish. In the original game, it's a bunch of monkeys on barrels that drive the player down to this specific space. In this one, it's supposed to be an anglerfish that comes and eats everyone and then knocks. It's supposed to be an anglerfish that appears, knocks everyone out of the screen, and then they land on that space. Haven't really done anything with it. As of right now, it just pushes everyone onto that space and then summons the anglerfish to come and appear, but the camera doesn't really follow it right. Landing on DK spaces, this specific green space, and the gold space does nothing so far. The shop space don't do anything, and it's going on a candy space. Will give you a piece of candy, but you can't really use it because the candy system hasn't been implemented yet. Now there's also a minigame, which is simply just run into the enemy and punch them. This part probably took me like an hour to make, right? I think this part probably took me an hour to make. Could be wrong, could have taken a little more, but it's really nothing special. It's based off the Lava or Leave 'em minigame from Mario Party 8, but I'm eventually going to replace it with an actual Lava or Leave 'em. Right now it's just a placeholder that it uses as the standard minigame of every single time you use the turn or whatever. But that's all that I can think of that I did in the first 2 weeks of working on this game. So now it's time to get on to what I did for the following month. Starting with a change you probably noticed already, all the characters have textures now. Also, I replaced 3 of the characters with 3 new characters. They're hard-coded into the player spots they're in right now, but once I add the character select screen, that'll all change. I also messed with the lighting a little bit. I toned down the directional light's intensity and I replaced it with a color blue. Then I use this app called Flow Frames to take some animation I'd made where I just simply took a texture and moved it over to the side and then made it a scrolling texture. And it took that, which was like a 4 frames per second animation, I turned it into, I think it was 60 frames per second. Or maybe it was 30, I can't remember what I changed it to, but now there's a whole bunch of frames that it goes through that makes it look a lot smoother. I finally fixed the spear guy space. Now, instead of a spear guy appearing, it's Vernius from Party Crashers. You might have noticed Sophist earlier in this game. That's because this is actually a Party Crasher stand game. Kinda. You also may notice Vernius is not holding a spear. That's because the editor put Vernius' face on a spirit bomb, and Vernius uses the spirit bomb to steal a piece of candy from you. I really like this joke. Going over the shop space now summons Vernius to ask you if you want a piece of candy. Saying no will let you move on without having to worry about anything. Saying yes crashes the game. This is because the month ended right before I was able to finish all the candy stuff that I was working on. the candy stuff is a bit not finished yet, and it won't be finished until the month's over, because that's when I start working on the game again. I'm taking this next month off this game to work on my horror game, so sorry, I guess. But I can't really show you the candy system either, because the candy system is broken. I was doing something to get the text to appear when you hover over the candy, and I realized what the glitch was before it happened, but I couldn't really finish it before the month ended. So I'm just going to wait till next month to worry about it. But the candy system was mostly what I've been working on this past month. I also finished the directional stuff. Now it's just a manual entry of whether the main direction is up, down, left, or right, and the alternate direction is up, down, left, or right. I was having this issue where on this specific spot, if you pressed right, you go right, and if you pressed up, you go right. That was because I was using an if-else loop, or that's because I was using if up, else if right, else if left, else if down, if up, else if down, else if left, else, which would mean right. But I forgot to put else's in front of the other ifs, so it was simply just if it's up, if it's down, if it's left, or if it's right. And it would just ignore the up and down part. So it took me quite a bit of time to figure out. But yeah, that's my month's progress on this game. I don't think I really worked the full month. I think I started like quarter of the way in of the month, so maybe I'll get more work done next time. But this has been the devlog for Pool Party 8. So thank you for watching, and bye.